The moment the red light went live, the arena froze. Caitlin Clark stood at center court, heartbeat pounding, cameras stacked like weapons, and a Guinness official tightening his grip on the folder that could rewrite sports history. Nobody expected this. Nobody was ready. Because standing just feet away was Tiger Woods, eyes locked, jaw set, silent in a way that screamed disbelief. The crowd roared, then gasped, phones shaking, social feeds exploding before the words were even spoken. This wasn't just a record. It was a collision of worlds, pressure, legacy, and raw power crashing in real time. Caitlin swallowed hard, knowing every rival, every critic, every executive was watching her breathe. The numbers flashed behind her, higher than anyone thought possible, and suddenly the building felt too small for the moment. Angel Reese stopped smiling. Paige Buchers leaned forward. Kathy Engelbert stiffened. When the official opened his mouth, Caitlin lifted her eyes toward Tiger, searching his face for doubt. She didn't find it. She found shock, respect, and fear. Because whatever was about to be announced, it would fracture the league, ignite jealousy, and trigger consequences nobody could control. The clock ticked. The microphone rose. Caitlin exhaled. And the world held its breath, unaware that the real fallout wouldn't come from the record. It would come from who was about to challenge it, sabotage it, and make sure this night ended in chaos. Everything changed in the next 5 seconds, and Caitlin felt it before anyone else did. Now, long before the lights, before the Guinness officials, before Tiger Woods' stunned silence, Caitlin Clark learned what it felt like to carry a target on her back. From the moment she stepped into the national spotlight, every shot she took came with whispers. Too flashy, too confident, too marketable, too dangerous to the balance the league had quietly protected for years. She wasn't just scoring points. She was bending gravity, pulling cameras, sponsors, and casual fans into a game that had never centered around one woman this aggressively. And with every sold-out arena, resentment grew like a shadow that refused to leave her side. Caitlin remembered the early road games where boos drowned out warm-ups, where opposing players smiled for cameras but tightened their jaws the moment the refs turned away. She felt it in the locker rooms, too. The forced congratulations, the sideways glances, the tension that thickened whenever her name came up in league meetings. Some veterans respected her grind. Others saw her as a threat to a hierarchy they'd fought decades to build. Angel Reese felt that tension deeply, caught between competitive fire and the uncomfortable truth that Caitlin's presence was shifting attention, money, and narratives overnight. Paige Buchers understood it differently. She saw brilliance paired with unbearable pressure, a star rising so fast the system barely had time to decide whether to celebrate or contain her. Off the court, Caitlin carried scars nobody saw. The nights scrolling through social media, watching praise flip into hate with one bad game. The think pieces questioning her impact despite historic numbers. The subtle league politics that never said her name directly but always seemed to circle back to her influence. Endorsements came fast, expectations faster. She learned to smile while her chest tightened, to answer questions carefully while knowing every word could be twisted into controversy. Then came the whispers about records. Not just WNBA records, numbers that crossed sports, genders, eras. Metrics that made executives nervous and legends curious. When Tiger Woods first heard her name tied to a live Guinness moment, he didn't laugh. He watched film. He studied the numbers. He saw something familiar: obsession, control, and a refusal to shrink when the world demanded it. Their brief conversations backstage before tonight were quiet but intense. No small talk. Just respect sharpened by understanding the cost of greatness. But Caitlin's history wasn't built in isolation. Kelsey Mitchell remembered the early practices where Caitlin stayed late, shooting until the janitors flicked lights. Aaliyah Boston remembered the locker room tears after a loss that social media treated like a personal failure. Kathy Engelbert remembered the meetings where Caitlin's name split the room in half. Growth versus tradition, risk versus reward. Every milestone she reached widened those cracks. By the time the Guinness opportunity surfaced, Caitlin already felt the trap closing. A live record meant immortality, but also exposure. A moment so big it couldn't be spun quietly or managed behind closed doors. She knew rivals would be watching, waiting for a stumble. She knew critics would downplay it, redefine it, or weaponize it. Still, she said yes, because backing down would confirm every doubt they'd ever whispered. Standing courtside now, heartbeat racing, Caitlin felt all of it collide. The childhood grind, the league tension, the jealous eyes, the allies holding their breath. She thought of how quickly celebration could turn into backlash, how one historic moment could ignite fights she couldn't control. And as the official raised the mic, Caitlin realized the record itself wasn't the most dangerous part of tonight. It was what someone else had prepared to reveal the second the applause started. Caitlin Clark didn't wake up one morning as the most polarizing force in basketball. She was shaped, slowly and painfully, by years of being too loud, too skilled, too visible in spaces that weren't ready for a woman to bend the game around herself. From the first time she pulled up from a distance nobody dared to guard, coaches whispered about discipline while fans gasped in disbelief. She learned early that greatness didn't just earn applause, it invited resistance. Every highlight brought cheers, and every cheer brought someone else's insecurity boiling to the surface. Growing up, Caitlin was taught that numbers don't lie. Buckets are buckets. Wins are wins. But the higher she climbed, the more she realized the scoreboard wasn't the only thing being tracked. Perception mattered. Narrative mattered. And for a league still fighting for respect, her sudden gravity made people uncomfortable. Veterans who had sacrificed years without recognition watched a rookie command headlines in weeks. Media outlets reshaped coverage around her name, sometimes without meaning to, sometimes very intentionally. And quietly, resentment began to ferment. Angel Reese felt it immediately. She'd fought her own battles for visibility, respect, and control over her story. When Caitlin's rise exploded, it felt like oxygen being pulled from the room. Not because Caitlin didn't deserve success, but because the system suddenly moved faster for her than it ever had for others. That tension wasn't hatred, it was survival instinct. Cameras framed everything as rivalry, but beneath it was something messier. Fear of being erased by a narrative that crowned one star while others clawed for space. Paige Buchers watched from a different angle. Injuries, expectations, and comparisons haunted her own path. She understood the pressure Caitlin carried because she'd felt versions of it herself. The league loved stars, but only when they behaved exactly how the audience expected. Caitlin didn't. She shot when told not to. She celebrated when told to be humble. She spoke confidently in a system that preferred gratitude over dominance. Paige knew that confidence came with a cost, and she worried the bill was coming due. Inside locker rooms, Caitlin felt the shift. Conversations stopped when she entered. Compliments felt rehearsed. Wins were followed by silence instead of joy. She wasn't imagining it. Teammates like Kelsey Mitchell tried to shield her, reminding her that jealousy always chases impact. Aaliyah Boston offered quiet reassurance, telling her that discomfort meant progress. But even allies couldn't fully protect her from the psychological toll of being the center of everything: praise, criticism, and league-wide anxiety. Off the court, the pressure multiplied. Endorsements rolled in faster than she could process them. Interviews blurred together. Every statement became a headline. One wrong tone, one misunderstood phrase, and social media erupted. Some fans worshipped her. Others dissected her every move, searching for flaws to justify their anger. Caitlin learned to measure her words, but the weight of expectation never lifted. She was expected to save the league, while simultaneously not overshadowing it. League executives noticed the numbers. Ticket sales surged when her name was on the schedule. Broadcast ratings spiked. Merchandise disappeared overnight. Kathy Engelbert sat in meetings where Caitlin's impact was discussed in careful language: growth, opportunity, balance. But beneath the corporate phrasing was a fear no one wanted to say out loud. Caitlin Clark was becoming bigger than the system built to contain her. And systems don't like losing control. Records began falling quietly at first, then loudly, then impossibly. Stats crossed into territory that made comparisons uncomfortable. Not just WNBA history, basketball history, sports history. Analysts started mentioning names that weren't supposed to share sentences with a young woman from Iowa. Legends took notice. Critics scoffed. And Caitlin felt the walls tightening. Success wasn't just raising her profile. It was forcing everyone else to pick a side. By the time whispers of Guinness officials surfaced, Caitlin already sensed danger. Live records couldn't be minimized. They couldn't be reframed days later. They happened in real time, in front of everyone. And worse, they attracted witnesses from outside the league's controlled narrative. When Tiger Woods' name entered the conversation, it sent shockwaves through quiet boardrooms. A global icon watching meant no spin, no soft landing. Caitlin replayed her journey in fragments: empty gyms, hostile crowds, silent locker rooms, roaring arenas. She knew this moment wasn't just about achievement. It was about exposure, about whether the league would celebrate her fully or flinch when the spotlight burned too hot. Standing on the edge of history, she felt something cold settle in her chest. Because somewhere behind the scenes, someone had decided tonight wouldn't just be about a record being broken. It would be about control being challenged. The arena didn't feel like a basketball building anymore. It felt like a pressure chamber. Every seat was filled, every aisle vibrating, every phone already raised before tip-off, as if the crowd sensed history was stalking the court. Caitlin Clark stepped onto the hardwood with a calm that looked practiced but wasn't. Her chest was tight. Not from nerves, she'd played through those her whole life, but from awareness. Tonight had weight. Tonight wasn't just another game. Tonight was being watched by people who didn't usually watch women's basketball at all. Cameras cut to luxury suites before the ball was even in the air. Celebrities. Executives. And then the whisper rippled through press row like electricity finding metal. Tiger Woods was in the building. Not as a casual fan. Not as a courtesy appearance. He was there because the numbers had crossed a line that demanded outside validation. Guinness officials were seated courtside, tablets open, faces neutral, ready to certify something that couldn't be argued away tomorrow. Caitlin felt at the moment she caught her first pass. The defense pressed higher than usual, bodies leaning into her space with an edge that went beyond strategy. This wasn't about stopping a shooter. This was about sending a message. Every screen came with an extra shove. Every contest lingered a fraction too long. Officials swallowed whistles. The crowd roared louder, sensing the tension sharpening into something dangerous. Angel Reese watched from the bench during a stoppage, jaw tight, eyes locked. She wasn't playing this game, but she was part of it. Everyone was. The league had framed Caitlin's chase of history as inevitable, almost celebratory, yet beneath that surface was an unspoken fear. What happens when one player's moment becomes bigger than everyone else's story? Angel felt the answer clawing at her chest. If Caitlin crossed this line, there would be no pretending the league wasn't orbiting around her anymore. The first quarter moved fast, frantic. Caitlin drained shots that made defenders look foolish, shots that forced gasps instead of cheers because disbelief hit before excitement. Each basket pushed the number closer. Commentators stopped pretending to analyze and started counting. Social media feeds exploded in real time. Clips, memes, arguments, praise colliding with resentment at the speed of refresh. By halftime, the buzz wasn't just loud, it was volatile. In the tunnel, Caitlin caught fragments of conversation she wasn't supposed to hear. Executives speaking in clipped tones. A producer arguing with a league rep about camera angles. Someone saying, "We can't let this overshadow," before their voice dropped too low to follow. That word, let, lodged itself in her mind. Let implied permission. Let implied control. The third quarter began like a storm breaking. Caitlin pulled from deep, a shot so audacious it felt disrespectful to physics. Swish. The crowd detonated. The number flashed on the scoreboard, just one away now, and for the first time the game stopped feeling real. Opposing players looked at each other, then at the bench, as if waiting for instructions that didn't exist. This wasn't in the playbook. You couldn't scheme against inevitability. Tiger Woods stood. Not clapping yet, just standing, arms folded, eyes fixed. The cameras caught it instantly. A global icon witnessing a moment the league had tried to contain within its own borders. Caitlin saw him in her peripheral vision and felt a strange mix of pride and dread. Validation at that level didn't come without consequences. Then it happened. The record-breaking shot wasn't flashy. It wasn't logo deep or off balance. It was clean, almost surgical. Catch. Rise. Release. Net. For half a second, the building froze, as if the universe needed confirmation. Then the eruption came, sound crashing down from every direction, players on the bench screaming, fans crying, strangers hugging. Guinness officials nodded to each other. Tablets updated. History was official. And that's when the first twist hit. Instead of the game resuming, the broadcast cut away. Not to a replay. Not to celebration. To a tight shot of the commissioner's box. Kathy Engelbert's face was composed, but her hands weren't. She was already speaking into a headset, eyes darting, posture rigid. The crowd noticed the delay. Confusion rippled outward. Caitlin stood near half-court, smiling, fading, waiting. A hush crept in where noise should have grown. On social media, fans began posting screenshots of the broadcast glitch. Comment sections filled with one question. Why aren't they showing it again? In the arena, staff clustered near scorer's table, voices urgent. A timeout was called that made no basketball sense. Caitlin walked to the bench, heart pounding now, not from adrenaline but from instinct. Something was wrong. Her phone buzzed in her warm-up jacket. She ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. Teammates glanced at her, expressions shifting from joy to concern. Kelsey Mitchell leaned close and whispered, "They're saying something's coming out." "What?" Caitlin asked, barely hearing herself. Before an answer came, the Jumbotron flickered. The league logo appeared. Not a highlight package. Not a congratulatory graphic. Just the logo, stark and corporate, hanging there like a warning sign. The crowd murmured. Booing started in pockets. Confusion turned to suspicion. Then a voice echoed through the arena, measured, rehearsed, unmistakably official. An announcement about an ongoing review. About context. About ensuring accuracy. Every word felt like a pin pressed into the moment, deflating it. Caitlin's record wasn't being erased, but it was being stalled. Paused. Complicated. Tiger Woods sat back down, expression unreadable. Phones across the arena lit up simultaneously. A clip began circulating, grainy, clearly behind-the-scenes footage from earlier in the week. Caitlin in a closed practice, frustration spilling over after a missed call, words spoken that weren't meant for public consumption. Not slurs, not insults, but raw emotion, confidence bordering on defiance. Enough to be spun, enough to distract. The timing was surgical. Commentators scrambled live, voices tightening as producers fed them talking points. Perspective. Balance. The broader picture. Caitlin felt the floor tilt beneath her. This wasn't an accident. This was a counterweight. A way to pull focus from the record to the narrative. Angel Reese's phone buzzed too. She watched the clip, then looked back at the court. Her expression wasn't triumph. It was recognition. She knew this move. When momentum threatened to tilt too far, the system corrected itself. In the locker room tunnel, league officials gathered, faces tense. Caitlin's name was being said without her present. Decisions were being shaped in real time, not about the score, but about the story that would dominate headlines by morning. Fans didn't miss it. Hashtags shifted within minutes, from celebration to outrage. Some defended Caitlin fiercely. Others seized the moment to criticize, to remind everyone she wasn't perfect, that no one should be bigger than the league. The divide widened with every refresh. Back on the bench, Caitlin stared at the floor, the roar of the crowd now distant, distorted. She had done what they said couldn't be done. She had broken the record live, in front of the world. And yet, instead of feeling complete, she felt exposed. Like the achievement had triggered a trap she hadn't seen coming. The official finally blew the whistle to resume play, but the game was gone. This wasn't basketball anymore. This was damage control versus inevitability. Caitlin stood, eyes hardening, realizing the truth settling into her bones. Breaking the record was the easy part. Surviving what came after would be the real fight. The game resumed, but nothing about it felt legitimate anymore. The scoreboard kept running, the clock kept bleeding seconds. Yet the arena existed in a suspended reality where basketball had become background noise to something far bigger and far uglier unfolding in real time. Caitlin moved through plays on instinct alone, her body executing muscle memory while her mind raced ahead, replaying the clip already burning across the internet like a match dropped into gasoline. Every possession came with a different kind of pressure now. Defenders weren't just guarding her shot. They were testing her composure, bumping her after the whistle, whispering things meant to provoke a reaction that could be clipped, looped, weaponized. The refs suddenly found their whistles again, but only in one direction. Ticky-tack fouls. Momentum killers. Subtle reminders that the night had shifted out of her control. On the bench, assistants huddled with tablets, scrolling furiously. One showed Caitlin a live feed of trending topics. Her name sat at the center of a storm. Half praise, half condemnation, both louder than anything she'd ever experienced. The record was still there, technically untouched, but the narrative was mutating by the minute. Headlines weren't about numbers anymore. They were about attitude, arrogance, optics. Angel Reese watched the chaos metastasize from her seat miles away, the sound of her own arena muted as she stared at her phone. She saw how quickly celebration had turned into interrogation. How fast people were willing to tear into Caitlin, not for what she did on the court, but for who they decided she was off it. A familiar anger twisted in her chest. Not because Caitlin was being targeted, but because she recognized the playbook. Build them up. Let them soar. Then remind them who controls the airspace. Paige Buchers texted Caitlin a single sentence. This isn't about you anymore. It landed heavier than any paragraph could have. Caitlin knew Paige was right. The league wasn't reacting emotionally. It was reacting strategically. Midway through the fourth quarter, the second twist detonated without warning. A league insider leaked a memo. It hit social media first, then bled into broadcasts through frantic, half-confirmed commentary. An internal document, time-stamped hours before tip-off, outlining contingency narratives in the event of a historic individual milestone. Caitlin's name wasn't explicitly stated, but the language was unmistakable. Plans for redirecting coverage. Talking points to recenter league values. A list of potential contextual clips to be surfaced if needed. The timing was devastating. Fans who had been on the fence snapped to one side or the other instantly. Some saw confirmation of manipulation, proof that the league had anticipated her moment and prepared to blunt it. Others argued it was standard PR, that stars needed managing, that chaos required control. The comment sections turned feral. Influencers picked sides. Former players weighed in, some defending the league, others calling it a betrayal of everything the game was supposed to represent. In the arena, Caitlin had no idea any of this was happening yet. She was focused on finishing the game with dignity, jaw clenched, eyes forward. But when she glanced up at the Jumbotron and saw the crowd no longer reacting to the plays, saw them staring at their phones instead, she felt the shift in her gut. Whatever was breaking out there was bigger than anything she could do in these final minutes. The final buzzer sounded to a roar that was loud but fractured, applause colliding with boos, celebration tangled with suspicion. Teammates rushed Caitlin, hugging her, but the joy was strained. Cameras closed in, hungry not for triumph but for cracks. A sideline reporter stepped forward with a microphone, eyes sharp, question already loaded. Caitlin answered carefully. Too carefully. The restraint only fueled speculation. Back in the tunnel, league officials waited. Not to congratulate her. To manage her. Words like timeline and alignment floated through the air. She was ushered into a private room, away from teammates, away from coaches. A screen was already set up, displaying trending clips, analyst panels, split screens of praise and outrage. It felt less like a debrief and more like an intervention. Kathy Engelbert appeared on the screen, face composed, voice calm in a way that made Caitlin's skin prickle. She spoke about responsibility, about leadership, about how moments like this came with expectations beyond the stat sheet. The implication was clear. This wasn't just Caitlin's record. It was the league's asset, and assets had to be protected, shaped, sometimes restrained. Then came the ask. Not a demand. An invitation. A request that felt optional only on paper. A public statement. Not tonight, tomorrow morning. Carefully worded. Acknowledging the record, yes, but also addressing the broader conversation. Expressing humility. Reaffirming values. A softening. A recalibration. Caitlin listened, heart pounding. And for the first time since she was a kid shooting alone in an empty gym, she felt something dangerously close to doubt. Not about her game, but about whether excellence alone was ever going to be enough. Elsewhere, Angel Reese saw the memo confirmed by multiple sources. She watched as former rivals suddenly found common cause, players texting each other across team lines, sharing the same uneasy realization. If this could happen to Caitlin, on the biggest night, with Guinness officials and global icons watching, it could happen to anyone. The league had crossed an invisible line. By the time Caitlin finally reached her phone, it was vibrating nonstop. Messages from friends, from sponsors, from people she hadn't spoken to in years. Some offered support. Others offered advice that sounded a lot like warnings. One text stood out, sender unknown. They're not trying to stop you. They're trying to shape you. She looked back down the hallway, where banners celebrated legends who'd come before her. Names etched in fabric and history. She wondered how many of them had stood in this same place, facing a choice no stat could measure. Outside, the crowd spilled into the night, arguing, filming, posting, turning her record into a referendum. Inside, Caitlin stood alone, realizing the truth tightening around her chest. Breaking the record had made her unavoidable. What she chose next would decide whether she stayed free, or became something the league could control. And somewhere behind closed doors, another document was already being drafted. The fallout didn't arrive in waves. It exploded like shrapnel in every direction at once. By the time dawn cracked the horizon, Caitlyn's name had become the loudest sound on the internet. Morning shows scrapped their rundowns. Sports radio abandoned box scores. Every panel, every podcast, every timeline treated the same moment like a crime scene, zooming in from different angles, arguing over intent, tone, meaning, legacy. Clips of the record-breaking shot looped endlessly, but they were no longer the centerpiece. Instead, split screens showed analysts dissecting her body language, her post-game pauses, the micro-expressions frozen and annotated like evidence. Some called her confident. Others called her calculated. A few went further, suggesting entitlement, questioning whether the moment belonged to her at all. The words landed hard, not because they were new, but because of how quickly they spread. Fans fractured instantly. One side defended her with ferocity, posting side-by-sides of past legends celebrated for the same swagger, now being scrutinized. The other side accused the coverage of favoritism, arguing that the spotlight itself was the problem, that the league was bending around one player while others fought for oxygen. Hashtags collided, trended, vanished, then resurfaced with sharper edges. Angel Reese woke up to thousands of mentions, her name dragged into a conversation she hadn't started but couldn't escape. Some fans demanded her opinion. Others projected one onto her. Old clips resurfaced, rivalries rewritten in real time by strangers hungry for contrast. Angel posted nothing, but her silence became its own headline. Every non-response was interpreted as shade, strategy, or solidarity depending on who was reading. Paige Buchers, usually insulated by quiet respect, found herself pulled into debates about balance and fairness. Former players chimed in, some cautiously defending Caitlyn's right to the moment, others warning that singular stardom could fracture locker rooms and fan bases alike. No one was neutral. Neutrality itself was framed as complicity. Inside league offices, the temperature spiked. Calls stacked on calls. Sponsors wanted reassurance. Broadcast partners wanted clarity. Social teams scrambled to moderate comments, moving faster than any filter could catch. A single congratulatory post became a battleground, replies drowning it in accusations and praise in equal measure. The league's attempt at calm messaging only fueled suspicion, every carefully chosen word scrutinized for hidden meaning. Caitlyn watched it all from a distance that felt unreal. Friends sent screenshots. Her family called, voices tight with worry masked as pride. She tried to scroll, then stopped when she realized how quickly validation curdled into pressure. Support came with expectations. Defense came with conditions. Even the praise carried an edge. Celebrate, but don't celebrate too much. Own it, but not too loudly. The Guinness officials released a formal confirmation, hoping to anchor the narrative in fact. Instead, it became another flashpoint. Critics argued the spectacle cheapened the game. Supporters said history deserved witnesses. Tiger Woods' brief, stunned reaction clip went viral, then was dissected too, some calling it iconic, others accusing media of reaching outside the sport to inflate the moment. In locker rooms across the league, players talked. Not in interviews, between reps behind closed doors. Conversations about branding, about who got grace and who got grilled, about how quickly the rules seemed to change depending on the spotlight. Some felt energized, believing the chaos meant eyes were finally on women's basketball. Others felt exposed, worried that the attention came with strings attached. Angel finally broke her silence with a short post that said everything without saying names. It was about respect, about space, about how moments could coexist without being compared to death. The response was immediate and explosive. Support poured in. So did backlash. The comment section turned into another front line, fans arguing over interpretations that said more about themselves than about her. Caitlyn's sponsors issued statements within hours, congratulatory, supportive, carefully neutral. The subtext was impossible to miss. Stay focused. Stay composed. Stay on message. Every brand alignment suddenly felt like a leash she hadn't noticed before. By evening, the narrative had shifted again. Now it was about what this means for the league. Think pieces questioned whether the moment unified or divided. Others argued the chaos proved growth pains were unavoidable. The record itself faded further into the background, reduced to a statistic buried beneath cultural debate. Caitlyn sat alone that night, phone face down, the noise still vibrating in her bones. She thought about the gym lights of her childhood, the simplicity of chasing a number because it mattered to her. She wondered when exactly that purity had been replaced by this, by optics, politics, expectation. Outside her window, fans still argued. Inside her chest, something heavier settled. The applause was real. The backlash was real. And the realization cutting through both was unavoidable. This wasn't a moment anymore. It was a turning point. And the league and Caitlyn would never look the same after what came next. The twist didn't come from a headline. It came from a silence that felt engineered. For 48 hours after the chaos peaked, Caitlyn Clark disappeared. No posts. No interviews. No carefully framed statement. For a player whose every movement had been tracked frame by frame, the absence itself became the loudest signal yet. Fans refreshed feeds like addicts. Analysts speculated with growing urgency. Was she overwhelmed? Was she being advised to stay quiet? Or was something bigger unfolding behind closed doors? Then a single clip surfaced. It wasn't broadcast. It wasn't polished. It was raw, leaked from a private setting, time-stamped late night. Caitlyn, sitting across from a small group. Faces blurred, voices hushed, speaking with a steadiness that cut sharper than any celebration ever could. She talked about the record, but only briefly. What followed was something no one expected. She questioned the machine. Not angrily, not defensively, calmly, deliberately. She spoke about moments being owned before players ever touched them. About narratives being decided faster than truth. About how praise could be as controlling as criticism when it came with conditions. The room went quiet as she admitted she hadn't felt proud yet, only pressured to perform gratitude correctly. Within minutes of the leak going public, the internet detonated again. Some fans called it brave. Others called it ungrateful. Media personalities split instantly, half applauding her honesty, half warning she was biting the hand that had elevated her. The same voices that celebrated her record now questioned her tone. Words like naive, dangerous, and divisive started trending alongside her name. League offices scrambled. Executives denied any wrongdoing, insisting the clip was taken out of context. Sponsors released neutral statements emphasizing partnership and mutual respect, but the timing felt defensive. Too fast. Too coordinated. It only fueled suspicion that Caitlyn's comments had landed closer to truth than anyone wanted to admit. Angel Reese reposted the clip with a single emoji, no caption. The internet read it like scripture. Supporters hailed solidarity. Critics accused her of stirring flames. Page Buchers liked the post, then unliked it minutes later, screenshots already spreading faster than explanations ever could. Every interaction became a chess move analyzed by millions. Then came the second shock. An anonymous source leaked an internal email chain from a major broadcast partner. The subject line alone sent chills through the fanbase. It outlined plans to recenter future coverage, to protect market momentum, to avoid narratives that complicate hero moments. Caitlyn's name appeared repeatedly, not as a player, but as an asset. A product, a storyline to be managed. The league denied the authenticity within minutes. No one believed them. Former players went live on social media, voices shaking with a mix of anger and recognition. They talked about years of being packaged, pitted against each other, silenced when inconvenient. Caitlyn's moment had cracked something open, and what spilled out wasn't flattering. Caitlyn finally spoke publicly the next day. No script, no podium, just her, sitting in a quiet gym, the echo of empty bleachers behind her. She congratulated her teammates. She acknowledged the record. Then she paused, eyes locked on the camera, and said something that shifted everything. "I don't want to be protected," she said. "I want to be honest. And if honesty costs me something, then at least it's mine." The reaction was immediate and ferocious. Some fans pledged loyalty for life. Others turned on her just as fast as they once defended her. Comment sections fractured into ideological war zones. Think pieces multiplied, now debating whether Caitlyn was becoming too big for the league, or whether the league was suddenly too small for the truth she was exposing. Behind the scenes, pressure mounted. Meetings were called. Endorsement terms quietly reviewed. Future appearances postponed. The cost of honesty revealed itself not as one dramatic punishment, but as a series of subtle doors closing. And yet, something else opened. Players across the league began talking. Not publicly, but together. Group chats formed. Conversations shifted from rivalry to recognition. From jealousy to shared understanding. The record had broken history, but the response had broken the illusion that the spotlight was neutral. Late that night, another clip surfaced. Short, Grainy. Caitlin walking into a private meeting room. Kathy Engelbert already inside. The door closed before anything could be heard. No audio. No explanation. Just one final image that froze the entire league in place. Whatever was about to happen next wouldn't just define Caitlin Clark's legacy. It would decide who really controlled the future of the WNBA. This is the moment where the noise stops being entertainment and starts becoming a choice. Because what you just witnessed wasn't only about a record, a headline, or a viral clip. It was about who gets to tell the story and who pays the price when they refuse to play along. Caitlin Clark didn't just step into history. She stepped onto a fault line, and now the entire league is trembling because of it. The question isn't whether you liked what she said. The question is whether you noticed how fast the tone changed the second she stopped smiling on command. If this made you uncomfortable, good. Discomfort means something real is happening. It means the curtain slipped, even if just for a second, and you saw the machinery behind the magic. The contracts, the narratives, the quiet pressure to be grateful instead of honest, to be marketable instead of human. This story doesn't end with one player. It never did. Every comment you leave, every clip you share, every time you question why some voices are amplified while others are muted, you're part of what happens next. Silence keeps systems comfortable. Attention forces them to respond. So don't just watch this moment pass like another trending topic. Talk about it. Argue about it. Ask the questions that make executives nervous and talking heads backpedal. Pay attention to who defends honesty and who suddenly changes the subject. Remember which players stood together and which ones vanished when the pressure spiked. Because the next headline hasn't dropped yet. The next leak hasn't surfaced yet. The next decision hasn't been announced. But it's coming. And when it does, the league will be watching the fans just as closely as the fans are watching the league. Who you support now shapes who feels safe speaking later. Who you challenge now decides what kind of future this sport is building. This isn't just Caitlin Clark's moment anymore. It's a turning point. And what happens next depends on whether you're paying attention or just waiting to be entertained.